Welcome to Trending Upward, and on today's episode, we are going to be looking at part 2 of our 4-part series on the laws of Paul. In part 1, if you remember, we looked at the foundation for these laws out of Romans 7, and today we're going to be looking at the first law of Paul in Romans chapter 7, verses 20 through 21. Now, if I do that, I would not. It is no more I that do it, but sin that dwelleth in me. I find then a law that when I would do good, evil is present within me. So the first law of Paul is, when I would do good, evil is present with me. You and I can never lose sight of the evil that is within us. We can never lose sight of the evil that we are capable of at any given time. There is enough evil lying in store within all of us to make the worst person that you and I could think of appear to be saintly. So how can evil always be present with us? The biblical answer is the heart. Charles Spurgeon very wisely stated this: the evil heart which still remaineth in the Christian doth always, when it is not attacking or obstructing, still reign and dwell within him. My heart is just as bad when no evil emanates from it, as when it is all over vileness in its external developments. A volcano is ever a volcano. Even when it sleeps, trust it not. A lion is a lion, even though he play like a kid. And a serpent is a serpent. Even though you may stroke it while for a season it slumbers, there is still venom in its sting when its azure scales invite the eye. My heart, even though for an hour it may not have had an evil thought, is still evil. If it were possible that I could live for days without a single temptation from my own heart to sin, it would be still just as evil as it was before. And it is always either displaying its vileness or else preparing for another display. It is either loading its cannon to shoot against us, or else it is positively at warfare with us. You may rest assured that the heart is never other than it originally was. The evil nature is still evil, and when there is no blaze, it is heaping up the wood wherewith it is to blaze another day. It is gathering up from my joys, from my devotions, from my holiness, and from all I do, some materials to attack me at some future period. The evil nature is only evil, and that continually. Without the slightest mitigation or element of good, the new nature must always wrestle and fight with it. And when the two natures are not wrestling and fighting, there is no truce between them. When they are not in conflict, still they are foes. We must not trust our heart at any time. Even when it speaks most fair, we must call it a liar. And when it pretends to the most good, still we must remember its nature, for it is evil, and that continually. Spurgeon's idea runs along the same thread as the Apostle Paul. The idea is that evil is always present. Have you ever surprised yourself? Maybe you said something or did something, and then you sat back and you were surprised about it? Well, don't be surprised, but use that as an occasion to be reminded. Whatever it was could only be revealed because it was present to begin with. Remember what Paul states in his first law in Romans 7 and verse 21. I find then a law that when I would do good, evil is present with me. So the first law of Paul is humbling if we allow it to have its effect on us, because human nature tends to think better of itself over good deeds. Many falsely believe they have a home in heaven over a few good deeds. We could also say that many Christians believe they have earned greater favor with God over a few good deeds. The idea here is that good deeds can be blinding. The idea here is that good deeds can blind us to present evil. If we're not careful, we will become so focused on our good deeds that we lose sight of the very real fact that evil still exists with us. Paul comes in and says, when I would do good, evil is present with me. How often do we see ourselves in the condition that we are truly in? This first law is Paul trying to reason with believers through his own life, through his own failures and his own shortcomings. He does this by stating that evil is always present in his own life. When you think of the Apostle Paul and you consider his earthly ministry and all that he accomplished for the Lord, this law should resonate with us. I do believe that it resonated with the church in Rome. How could it not? A man is writing to them from a Roman prison for the cause of Christ. That's powerful in and of itself. The Apostle Paul, while in prison, still had the heart and spirit about him to be used of God. So this church in Rome, receives this letter from the Apostle Paul saying, evil is present with me. When those such as Paul who have made much of Christ, and Christ has made much of them, speak in this way, it reminds us that evil is present with us. Perhaps the church in Rome said to themselves, if Paul has evil, we certainly have evil. What is the effect? People do not lose sight of their heart's condition. 1 Corinthians 15:10, but by the grace of God I am what I am, and his grace which was bestowed upon me was not in vain. But I labored more abundantly than they all. Yet not I, but the grace of God which was with me. Paul humbly stated as it was through God's grace that he labored more abundantly than they all for the cause of Christ. This simply means that the ministry efforts of the Apostle Paul exceeded all of his fellow laborers. However, Paul still recognized that something accompanied all his labor, and that was the presence of evil. Now, when evil is always present and we are aware of it, then we are more on guard to resist it. When we lose sight of the evil that is with us, we live loosely and close to the edge. We would naturally mean that much of the time we find ourselves wandering off into evil. The hymn writer Robert Robertson knew something of this also when he penned, Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing, in the 1700s at the young age of 22. And in the third stanza, Mr. Robertson penned this, Prone to wander, Lord, I feel it, prone to leave the God I love. I submit to you this. You will be more prone to wander when you lose sight of evil being present with you. To the one who may say, I do not stray, or I never wander off into evil, or I have no present evil. Well, how can one say they have not wandered if they do not live consciously of evil's presence? I'm never surprised when a good person, in their own eyes, never falls. Why? They do not see evil. If they saw evil, they would know where it was. They would know how close they get to it. And when they end up in it, many are blind to the evil within. Paul wanted the church in Rome to see their evil. Paul wanted those believers to be reminded that evil is always present with them. We too must live conscious of the very real fact that evil is present with us. Spurgeon says, our best performances are so stained with sin that it is hard to know whether they are good works or bad works. Now we know that God considers a man's motives. Spurgeon must have considered this when he made such a statement. Why? A man's work does not blind God to the true condition of his heart. Oftentimes, we as people can be blinded to the true character of a person by their good deeds. God does not have this flaw. In Revelation 2, verses 1 through 4, unto the angel of the church of Ephesus write, These things saith he that holdeth the 7 stars in his right hand, who walketh in the midst of the 7 golden candlesticks. I know thy works, and thy labor, and thy patience, and how thou canst not bear them which are evil, and thou hast tried them which say they are apostles and are not, and hast found them liars, and hast borne and hast patience, and for my name's sake hast labored and hast not fainted. Nevertheless, I have somewhat against thee, because thou hast left thy first love. So we see in Revelation chapter 2 that the Lord praised the church of Ephesus for their works. What does this tell us? Works are important. But not only did the Lord praise them, but he also rebuked them. He offers a rebuke because in all of their labors they left him. What does this tell us? Motive is also important. So how does this tie in with the first law of Paul? Ephesus lost sight of the evil within. It is truly nothing short of evil to place anything ahead of Christ, even if it is good deeds. It truly falls into line with human reasoning to attempt to work our way into God's favor. However, we are to go into our labors with God's favor. God is always previous. Everything that we do for the Lord should begin with him and end with him. So keep these truths in mind. Spurgeon says this, when we come to the end of self, we come to the beginning of Christ. So I remind you as we close out this episode today of the first law of Paul, and be reminded of it. In Romans 7 and verse 21, I find then a law that when I would do good, evil is present with me.